really want to be in accordance with the mayor's guidelines related to the district. So I think, Commissioner Bowles, what I'm going to do is whenever you're ready to start, I will do some introductory remarks and then toggle back and forth with some of the questions that I received from you. I'll be honest, and I don't have every answer with you today, but I think we will try our best to start working through a channel to get some answers and to move forward. Hi, Allie, how are you?
Oh, she's good. Okay, well, looks like
I've never used the system, so I'm so used to seeing a screen of people. So
yeah.
I just promoted Ted, so he should be coming back soon here and be able to talk.
Wonderful. Hey Ted, good to hopefully see you soon, and thank you all. Movie night is on Thursday at dusk.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So greetings everyone. My name is Japer Bowles. I'm the ANC commissioner for 1C07, which is essentially the west part of the Recook neighborhood, or the entire east side of 18th Street. I also have a block of Lanier between Joseph's house and Phil's Coffee. We do not currently have Damiana on the line. We do not currently have John Zatoli on the line, but we do have a Commissioner Guthrie on the line. Commissioner Guthrie, can you hear us? And would you like to introduce yourself? And can we hear quorum purposes?
Yeah, I think we can probably go ahead for quorum purposes. Unfortunately, my video isn't working for some reason, so I'm just a blank screen.
We can hear you, Ted. Thank you.
You're more than that to us, Ted. So great. John will be joining us shortly. Gordon, would you just promote him whenever he gets in?
You got it.
So we have just a few things on the agenda. The main focus is Mr. Jones from the Department of Parks and Recreation to discuss the different updates of our three major parks that are, I guess, 4 with Ann Hargrove added there in Adams Morgan, and to give an updates on those. They've got a lot of different issues to tackle. So I think the one to start off with that would make the most sense is just to hand it over to you, Mr. Jones, and then if we could start with Ann Hargrove and possibly end with Unity Park, I think that would make the most sense in terms of the discussion and the folks who are on the line that want to talk about each of these parks specifically. Is that okay?
Well, first of all, Commissioner Bowles, thank you so much for an opportunity to be here today. It is really, really great for me to connect with the residents. This is I always try to give an introduction to tell folks that I'm not new to DC government. This is my 6th year in government. I started out in the mayor's office of Community Relations and Services as a Ward 5 liaison, was deputy director and director of the Moker's office. I had a great opportunity with the mayor to really work with communities just like here in Adams Morgan and so forth, to really connect with residents in a way that is most beneficial. Hold on. My wife is trying to give me dinner in the same vein. All right, thank you. All right, thank you. Sorry about that. This is, I guess this is dinner time. And so in that, I've, had an opportunity to really work with resident groups, and I was at DGS for a year and now at DPS. So I think my experience will hopefully help us get through some of these issues that you're faced with. I have reached out to our team to sort of talk about some of these issues that you have. Some are systemic in nature, when we're dealing with homelessness and issues related to the public not following the way in which we would hope they would. And then there is capital construction issues that I saw in some of your emails. And so I think in general, I see that there was discussion about in Hargrove Park. I believe that was a park that we received about $100,000 of funding in, and we need to begin the community engagement process as we move into FY 2021. That part of the, we will look to move that forward soon. I don't have a definitive date. I don't have a definitive date when we will begin that community engagement process. But what I will say is that part of our community engagement process really involves with connecting with the advisory neighborhood commissioners and any community or civic group that is associated with the adjacent parcel or park in essence. So, but I do know from our team is that we are looking to begin having a community meeting of sorts, and then looking to go into the next phase, which would be developing a statement of work and putting it out for bid. I will say though, with that project, it will not, our intent is to not have lots of meetings, but really is to look, because it is a very small amount of funds, but it's really to work with the community to come up with a general consistency of information. So let me just, I'm gonna, every now and then, just to let you know, I'm reading these questions live too. So sometimes I might type back, sometimes I might. So really, I think folks were asking about the movie. I don't know what actual movie that we'll be playing. I know we have been on this Black Panther sort of movie kick in light of rather, the death of Chadwick Boseman. So, so from that instance, that's normally which has been the movie going forward. There is no link. We are, you know, we definitely look to have the movie night, but we also are taking serious considerations into the mayor's order related to social distancing, as well as how many guests we can have at a given time. So just sort of to answer the question. So I will type back in there, or someone on this team can help me out. That's just the gist of what we'll say and keep that going. So I hope that answered the question of in Hargrove Park. I am going to pull up an email that I received today from our team. So if you can bear with me. And I think this was an email that Allie, you sent me related to some questions that you had. And this was more in general for the parks. And so if you sort of see me, if you don't mind, Commissioner Bowles, I'm going to read some of these questions because I think residents wanted to know, and then I will formally respond in a much larger email to you in the coming days. If you okay?
Yeah, that works.
All right. So the question was, who in DPR is in charge of cleaning up after homeless in a park? So that answer is, we work with the Department of Public Works in the Department of General Services to clean up a park when we see different things that need to be cleaned. There are schedules for the parks to be cleaned in terms of grass and weed trimming, but traditionally we work with those two agencies. I will say that we also have a host of volunteer groups and community organizations that work with us to help us do clean of the, keep our parks clean. So it's a combination of both. And then now so there was a question about increased need for garbage pickup due to public use. So yes, we can, if residents are seeing that this has an extensive use, we will work with the Department of Public Works because they're the ones that pick up the trash cans and litter. We can work with them to look at the schedule and see how they can pick up for additional pickup. Let's see. There was a question, what are the hours for the recreation center open and when does the employees work? Our traditional hours for this, and I believe this is probably for, I think this was Calorama, if I'm not mistaken. So traditional hours are from 3:30 to 9 Monday through Fridays, and it's closed on Saturday. And as you know, our operating status at this time is that our recreation centers are closed. As the mayor announces reopening plans, the DPR on its website will, and through all of our social media, and more than likely an email will go to the ANC commissioners that will tell of a difference in our opening status. I would recommend for residents, if you go on a DPR's website at DPR, so dpr.dc.gov, you can then go on and sign up for notifications and receive alerts. We also have what we call Nixle, and Nixle allows for residents to receive information via text and email. Let's see. The bathrooms are open normally between Monday through Sunday from 9 to 9. There was a resident question. All right, Kristen, I will check with our team to make sure that the bathrooms are open. So no, to make sure that the bathrooms are open during the moving. All right, and then there was, is needed and extremely, to answer Zach's question, we can't really, we really don't look at this small, bathrooms are bathrooms, right? Big or small park, it doesn't matter. We try to make sure that where there's a public access and public way, we'll try to work to have our bathrooms. I think some of this is a little bit of an opinion, so I won't get into that. I would recommend, though, Zach, that you work with the Metropolitan Police Department. If you are witnessing crack smoking or other things in the alleyways or related to, yes. Hi, buddy. I'm on a call right now. All right. So I would definitely make sure that you work with our police department. So I apologize for that. So I am going to put in the chat. There was, or I will talk, there was a question about who is the Colorama Park manager. Her name is Zenobia Moten, and the regional manager for that area is Marion Spike. And so I'll put those, Commissioner, I'll make sure that you have those. So there were some questions related to volunteers needing access to the water, outlets at the rec center and outside the basketball court. So, we will look into that issue related to turning on and turning off of the water fountains. I've heard that issue several times related to parks, many of our parks. So we'll look into that issue a little bit further. But just in general, we try to, make sure where we're able to provide water access or have a water fountain to have those on. We do know that at times some of our assets are in repair. And so we work to make sure that our partners at the Department of General Services are aware of that. But I can definitely, if there is a problem, we'll definitely look at it and make sure. So there was a question related also to outside the rec water outlet. It used to be operated by water keys for those volunteers who knew how to use a key. DPR switched the outlet to a spigot, and the spigot is now turned off 99% of the time by a rec employee because homeless people will run the water. I'll have to look into this issue. I can't give you a definitive answer because I don't know the full context of that. So I'm going to reach out to our manager of that facility and follow up. But just in general, we, at times have to make some tough decisions related to how we operate because in these cases, we want to make sure that we are doing everything possible to protect the district and its assets. All right. So that was some questions there. Commissioner, I want to open it up just a little bit, if you don't mind. I see some folks are talking about Unity Park. I'm more familiar with that park too. So
I believe that is where a lot of the potential folks experiencing homelessness or I actually want to kind of defer that conversation and talk about Ann Hargrove Park first. That is where it needs to be on the checklist. A lot of folks have concerns, just really what the update is, what the status is, when construction will begin, what the designs look like, things like that. If you could just give us an update for Ann Hargrove Park, and then I would like to do more of a deeper dive into Unity Park, which I don't think is necessarily you being able to have all of the questions or the answers to all the questions. I think it is a joint conversation that we also need to have with MPD and Department of Behavioral Health and Allie from the council member's office. So we've already had one of these type of charrette calls, and we plan on having another one that's hosted by the BID and a few other stakeholders that I'd like for you and other neighbors, I would encourage to join and list, your continued complaints and issues with. But if you could possibly talk about Ann Hargrove Park right now, that'd be great.
Yeah, no problem. So I mentioned this early on in the beginning. It has about $100,000, from my understanding from our team, it has $100,000 in the budget appropriated for the park. No construction has started. We are still working to identify the statement of work. And what does that mean? That means what the heck are we gonna do? And how are we gonna do it with $100,000? And so we know in the coming months, I would honestly say probably in the next month or two, we'll look to the commission to host a community meeting with us. And we do our meetings virtually, where we will then start to identify things that are needed with the park and within budget. Okay, so you're gonna hear me talk about.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
So you're gonna hear me talk about budget a lot. It has to be within budget, right? And it has to, and so we want to know. And I did hear, Commissioner, did you say that there are some community partners like the BID? Is this the Adams Morgan BID and others that want to be a part of this? Or help me understand a little bit.
I don't necessarily, I'm sure they would be interested in Ann Hargrove, and I can actually promote Kristen. I know that she's answering a few folks' questions right now. But more so, I know that the Kalorama Fund is interested. And then there's just an ongoing, the Kalorama Citizens Association is also interested into specifics about what the park will look like and what they can get for $100,000. I don't think there is any, and I could totally be wrong here. Ted, if you're on the line and can hear, and others, I don't think it's necessarily super contentious. I just think people know that there's $100,000 and they're like, when's it going to get fixed up?
Well, I think that's part of it. I think there also are some particular issues or questions that folks who live adjacent to the park have that, want to make sure are addressed in the planning process. And we did have several meetings, I believe it was late last year, including one on the site, that we had a preliminary draft of a plan that then got some community input, and we were supposed to be getting another subsequent plan, and we never got anything on that. And as I recall, the guy who was in charge of it was Brent something. But I never heard further why he was no longer available to come to meetings. So we have had some preliminary stuff, but we need more. And the particular entities you identified are probably the groups, but there's also a whole lot of individuals who live nearby, and I'm sure that a lot of people who hop on and off the bus there will have some input to make and that sort of thing.
But yeah, you're muted if.
I'm like, too much. I think it's, so here, Ted, I'm just going to call people by first names. I don't want to go through all these formalities.
Please don't.
I think we're all friends here. So here's what we'll do is I'll regroup back with our team and let me figure out sort of where we're at. I do know from what I've heard, though, that there was a lot of discussion on this. And so I think one of the things that's coming to the consensus that there is not a lot of money, so you can't do much. And then I think the other question is, what I'm hearing you all say is that there are some groups that want to possibly provide funding or become a partner with this park. And so, at what levels are these at and how we can help? I do that all the time. We have partnership agreements and others. So I think, I don't know whose single member district this is in.
It's in mine.
All right, Ted. So Ted, let's maybe jump back on a call later. Maybe you and I can talk, or you can send me an email and we can sort of regroup on this.
Sure.
And I think we probably need to, it sounds like I'm hearing you say we need to regroup sooner than later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
and we're happy to do this in this forum as well. It's just, we just really want to know a status update, and then I mean, hopefully we can get some construction moving forward. Ted?
Yeah, I somehow, some of the neighbors had the impression that, the bulldozers were ready to move in and got all excited about, not having sufficient public input. So I'm glad to hear that, a community process is going to be involved before the final decisions are made. And yeah, I think that the committee is the best place to do that. So I'll get together with Tommy and we can figure out what we can do to put that forward.
So here's what, and Ted, thank you so much. Here's what I'm thinking. Let me regroup with our team, get back with you next week. We'll talk with our team to see if we can come up with a community meeting in October or November at the latest. We just have a bunch of things going on. So I don't want to commit to an actual date or a time, but I will give you a time frame. And then I see Allie also mentioned a couple other, like the Promenade Association. I'd like to do a pre-meeting with some of the leadership to sort of understand some of the things that are going on. And maybe Ted, you can help with that, facilitating that, because and then we can look at how we will get the masses of people to come to our virtual meeting.
Sounds good.
All right. So
sorry, this is Allie. I just wanted to say, obviously, count the council member's office in for whatever, Tommy or Commissioner Guthrie, you all need from us.
That was without saying, Allie.
Well, I just have to offer. I decided to show my face for a minute too, just so everybody knows I'm on.
So thank you so much, Allie, for that. So turning on to Kalorama Park, I know that there's been erosion issues with directly to the east of 19th Street, that sidewalk that's parallel there. I know last year, essentially, they were saying that they were going to do some new construction. They were going to do some replanting. Is there any update on the erosion in Kalorama Park?
Unfortunately, Japer, I don't have an update on that one, on that, but I will look into that.
Yeah, that'd be really helpful.
Is it in the park or is it in the right of way?
It's in the park. It's definitely the park area, and I can forward you. The past chain emails that I have. I believe it was folks that were pretty high up in DPR, because the neighbors that live on 19th Street have actually been using their funds to replant and put vegetation and other strategies to avoid runoff.
Okay, so if you want to, that'd be perfect. If you just want to send that to me, I'll look into it and get back to you.
Great. And then we weren't going to talk about this park, but since John's here, John has a question specifically about Walter Pierce Park. And if you don't know the answer, of course, we can pull it off to the side. Commissioner.
I know a little bit. I know this has been a very interesting park. And I think you guys are in phase 2 of construction, correct?
You're talking about the playground area.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's getting close. But I had a process question, Tommy. I'm a new commissioner for a single member district that includes Walter Pierce, and the issue that I'm trying to deal with has to do with all the mud and also in the summertime dust in the dog park area. There used to be gravel there, and there isn't much left anymore, and it kind of makes a mess. Some of the dog people, by the way, they're engaged. Boy, they look out for their dogs. Some of the dog people had asked, I guess they asked DGS for gravel, and nothing happened. I contacted the person who the advisory neighborhood commissioners are supposed to approach about getting some gravel. And I got a response, I've referred this to the right people, but nothing's happened. And before I sick Allie on them, I thought I would see if you were ready to help me find the right person at DGS to talk to.
Well, the good thing is I'm probably familiar with the folks. So if you want to send me your email, I'll be able to look into it further. I also would love to talk with you, John, just to make sure that there is a dedicated Friends of the Dog Park group. It may be one already established, but would love to, maybe formalize that connection. We have, friends of groups in particular that support our dog parks. I believe we have.
I think there's a dog park group for Walter Pierce.
Yeah.
There's a listserv, and I know the people that are active posters on the listserv. And I think that could be the nucleus for the Friends group. We also, of course, have a Friends of Walter Pierce Park group.
Okay. So yeah, love it. Feel free. I'm going to, I'm doing this now just for everyone that's on the call. Here's my email. And here's my cell. And both of those are where you definitely can call or email me. I answer my own cell phone. I don't have an executive assistant, and I answer all of my emails as well. So I try to get back to folks as promptly as possible. But I just want to make sure that just for everyone, if you do have questions and maybe I didn't get to them today, that you can definitely get back to me.
All righty. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Commissioner Bowles, is there anything else that you need me to?
So, yeah, if we could just briefly talk about all of the potential solutions that DPR could possibly do as it relates to Unity Park. And then I think that, it's more of a community discussion, and then we could take Q&As from residents, not necessarily you but us as a committee will take questions.
Okay, good.
Cool.
What's going on? So tell me a little bit about this park.
Yeah, so I would call it a pocket park on Euclid, Champlain, and Columbia. So it's directly across from the Line Hotel, as well as City Bikes and a few other businesses on Champlain. The ANC recently passed a scooter corral resolution to get rid of some additional parking there. But other than that, it was previously redone, re-envisioned. I believe that you mentioned that there's an agreement with private entities redoing parks. And I believe that there is one of those types of agreements with the Line Hotel and Unity Park. Recently, I've been getting more attention to this park from residents who think that there is illegal drug activity. I myself have witnessed marijuana smoking, as well as open container and folks drinking like straight from the bottle. So I know it's liquor. And right now, it seems that a lot of residents are increasingly, honestly afraid. It seems like they, there's more drug deals, and that there's a public urination problem, and that folks aren't wearing masks, and that there's music, and that it turns into a party-like atmosphere. And to me, I definitely think that there's a few of those things that we can help solve. The public urination, I would always want there to be a restroom available for anyone to use. And right now it's really hard with COVID. A lot of businesses don't have their restrooms publicly available. So to me, being able to limit public urination by adding a restroom makes sense. But in terms of the other problems, I feel like, the neighbors, we really haven't really found solutions to. And I want to bounce it off of you and see if there's any opportunities that DPR could get more engaged to make this space a safe space for everyone and welcoming for everyone. Of course, I have ideas such as activating the space more, like what neighborhood associations do. But still, we do have neighbors and businesses and property owners who believe that there is illegal activity ongoing in the park and that MPD is not doing enough, or the city isn't doing enough.
All right.
It's a lot.
No, it's not a lot. I think, let me preface a lot of this. I think that you all can imagine that our district is facing unprecedented times as a whole. We have families that have experienced homelessness at a record amount than we've seen in past years. We also have individuals that with some good and some bad intentions do not follow district laws as prescribed. And so we are challenged in agencies to really work to provide the best solutions possible. So I think in my role is there's two. We look to, retain open space as much as possible. So the first thing I'd want to do is see if this park is actually in our portfolio. And so I'll have to do some research on that. I don't necessarily know if this parcel, because some of the things you said, probably it gave me question.
So I do know that it is, but there's also
I want to verify.
It's also within the bid too. So the bid has folks that clean up the area And Kristen may be able to talk more about this, as well as a safety and security officer who walks through 18th Street. And I believe Jorge knows folks. I mean, I know folks people should know who are in their neighborhood. So I believe they have a relationship with them as well. So just even more background.
Yeah, and the reason why I say I need to know is, and don't take this the wrong way, is, you will, you don't know until you look for yourself, right? And so I want to be able to work with our team to see if this is actually something that is in our park system or parks. We have hundreds of small parks. This may be considered a small park, so I'd have to look into it. You do bring up some interesting opportunities, right? You talked about the bid, you talked about the local businesses that are around. I mean, you talked about the neighbors themselves really working in partnership to activate the park in some way. I think we would always be open to hearing solutions like that. Thanks, Kristen. Just in terms of the bid and the clean team there doing multiple sweeps. This, I would say, in terms of a problem, this is a problem that as a district we have in many parcels throughout the district where there is just open space and open access, but we're always willing to look at solutions and look at ways in which we can help. Okay. So Kristen, it's my understanding you must be with the bid.
Yeah.
All right. I think, maybe it's kind of, I don't know all the answers to it yet, but I think it's sort of coming together and also possibly having a site meeting, maybe with a small group of people, Allie, Japer, Kristen, and then, putting some fresh set of eyes on it and then try to come up with some solutions. And I also think we need to include some of our district partners, because some of the things that you're saying may or may not be in some of the folks, they may not know. All right. And then
Tommy, just to quickly, and Commissioner Bowles, interrupt me, but I just want to highlight the district agencies that have been involved, because I do agree that some agencies have been brought up, that some aspects have been brought up that might not fall into your purview, Tommy. So, we do have our homeless outreach team who goes once a week. We have the Department of Behavioral Health Substance Abuse team. We have our DC Prevention Center going to, hand out substance abuse information. We have there's a very loud bass driving down my road. We have, the Department of Behavioral Health, Department of Health Rodent Abatement. I think getting DPW more involved could be really helpful. I think some of what we were excited to, have DPR on is just any of your perspective on how, on small parks and just strategies in small parks from the DPR point of view. And you don't have to answer this right now. It's just that can be useful for creating a space that, all the neighbors feel welcome. Because I think right now there's a sense that some neighbors feel really welcome and some neighbors maybe feel a little bit less welcome. So just thinking about that. But I think it's the multi-agency approach. And I wanted to just highlight to you and to everybody listening that we have engaged a lot of agencies, and I think definitely should continue to do so.
Yeah, and Allie, thanks for that background information. That really helps. And I think Kristen, I noticed that you said there's going to be an October 8th meeting at 2 p.m. On this issue. So I'd like to just sort of from a DPR standpoint, would love to talk with you all a little bit further before this October 8th meeting to maybe understand some of the issues that you're really saying I don't know, because we have hundreds of small parks, and we have, 70 plus rec centers, and, so I don't,
Portfolio.
yeah, so I don't have the specifics to this, but, my experience with it, we can work on this. I don't think it's difficult, but I also think one of the other things is for the community is a sort of understanding that the district is doing the very best that it can do. I always will say to folks is that, sometimes you don't see what the district agencies are doing because you may not be there at the particular time in which they're doing it. The second thing is, we can ask folks to seek shelter or seek treatment, but we can't force them into getting shelter or treatment. And so that is sometimes difficult for others to see. But I think it's something that we can definitely, work together with in all of our offices to put this together. But I just want to bring a couple of those points, which are paramount as well.
Great. So whenever we do join this, could you also help us bring information relating to like how to incorporate a Friends of group?
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
a Friends of Unity Park would definitely be helpful in this situation. At least would provide more oversight and more interest to it. So I want to go ahead and open the floor to a few folks. They have had their hands raised. So we're gonna have Charlie. Charlie, can you hear us?
I sure can.
All right, you're on.
So glad you're hosting this meeting about the park. I think a lot of people, not just businesses. I'm a business and a resident. Let me explain. I started City Bikes about 33 years ago, right on the corner of Champlain and Euclid. I also own the building next door at 2503 Champlain Street. It is my office as well, so all day long I look out over the park. And I've seen quite a rapid change in the character of the park and the guests. Particularly of late, there's a crew that is set up and is doing drug dealing right in the middle of the park. Really unfortunate. And then I think there's a lot of real, just a parade of sadness of people that are drug addicts or drunks that are basically in the park all day long. I know it's a larger problem than law enforcement can solve, but I'm afraid to say I have to take issue with what you said, that the DC is doing their best. I haven't seen a single person from DC. I see the police very occasionally, but I don't see anybody out there trying to solve the problem. If I go out and politely ask people not to defecate or urinate or do drugs, they're usually fairly respectful, but I feel like that shouldn't really be my job. My business is really suffering because, in particular, we have a problem with most of the guests of the park, all of them, are not wearing masks. And the configuration of the park is such that I call them super spreader benches. So they're in a circle around the tree. And the guests will arrange themselves around the seats, talking to each other and talking to people. Essentially, if anybody's infected, they would be broadcasting the virus in not just a 6-foot radius, but almost like an 18-foot radius, which covers the sidewalks, all of the park. The kind of guests that are in the park, I guess they're not wearing masks, so they're not afraid. But I know my clients really don't feel comfortable going near the park. I don't feel comfortable going near the park. The drug dealers aren't threatening or anything, but it's clearly active commerce going on, and they seem to be pretty fearless of any kind of enforcement action. I think the question needs to be asked, I understand it's a difficult time and there's political challenges and so on, but, for me and it's lots of other businesses, we're at a crossroads here where we're evaluating whether to continue doing business in the neighborhood. And during COVID, from a lot of different things. This is not the trend of where this park is going. Is when we got here 33 years ago, it was an open drug market, drunks, aggressive. It is going back that direction. I can't fight that fight again. When we dealt with the park issues 33 years ago, it was a long process, but one thing we figured out was that the park was configured in such a way that allowed too many guests, and too many guests can create these kind of problems. If there's more limited seating, in this case, probably more COVID unfriendly seating, it might make for less of a super spreader type of situation and might not make for, hey, I'm all for a party, okay? And if it was just people that were partying, these are folks that are there all day long, and they may be partying, but they don't look like they're having fun. So I don't know what to do about it, but I have to say, if nothing can be done, if nobody's got the guts to do anything about it, then it's going to be rough, because you will have to explain to your constituents why you don't have a bike shop or why you don't have a store on the corner anymore. We can't stick our head in the sand here. This has to be confronted, and I think the park needs to be reconfigured. The people who deal with this all the time understand that. Yes, it's a bitter pill. It may not be popular with everybody, but I don't know. That's my feeling, looking at it all day long, every day.
Well, Charlie, first of all, thank you for your comments. Thank you for your commitment to the district, especially as being a small business owner, and all the work that I know you probably are doing each and every day to keep your business afloat and people pedaling throughout all of the district and the community. So first, just want to say thank you. Again, I do think that it's an opportunity to visit the park. I think Ricardo made a mention of it. If there is the thought of taking benches out. I think I don't want to speak for our agency, but if it is something that needs to happen, we definitely can look into that. And we can also look at the type of bench. We know that in some instances where we have benches, there are not the most user-friendly for communities that are experiencing problems. So we'll have to look at this, and we're happy to work with all of you. I do think, Allie, is this 3D, MPD 3D?
It is.
Yes.
Okay. So it is. I think it's also a conversation, definitely needing to be had with the sector captain and lieutenant and others to see what type of enforcement, because DPR as a whole, we don't have enforcement in the sense of, putting someone in jail or giving them a ticket. We don't have enforcement authority of that nature. We rely upon the Metropolitan Police Department to provide that level of enforcement. And then, issues of funding for the park, that is looked at each and every year, and we work in response with the mayor's office and the DC Council as they approve or disapprove of our budget. So I think what you're doing first, Commissioner, is correct. Sort of, really working to bring all the folks together. And then I think we need to identify some long-term and some short-term solutions. I want to challenge a little bit of Charlie. I thank you for the question, but I also want to challenge you too when we have these community meetings and walkthroughs. Hopefully that you can be involved in them, because we're only as good as the information that we have. And so I just want to ask you to, when we do have these type of opportunities, that you're there at the table.
I would be happy to. I'm taking lots of pictures, and that might help law enforcement. We're going to put up a camera this week as well.
Yeah.
both in the front facing the park and in the alley. But you know, this is starting to sprawl too. So those are two hotspots. Yeah, thank you for addressing all this. I'm really glad to hear you take it on. I mean, the one thing the gentleman from the MPD, the PSA lieutenant said, and I think it's along the same lines, is other factors of the park, like the rules and regulations of the park, may need to get a fresh look. Whether it's I don't know what it means exactly, but I'm sure that some common sense rules might make sense, so it's not a so unpleasant to be around.
I think, again, I'll have to look at one thing we can do is look at signage in the park as well, right? So making sure that the appropriate signage is there. So, but I don't want to take up too much of your time, Commissioner, but were there any other questions too?
I don't think that you necessarily need to stay around to answer any of these, because I think we've pretty much maxed out all of what DPR could do for us. But there are folks that do have questions, and in 1C we typically do allow folks to talk or ask any questions that they do have. So I am gonna allow, and feel free, Mr. Jones, if you do need to leave. I actually only asked for 15 to 30 minutes of your time, so I'm more than grateful that you're here.
Don't worry. I'll call you later when I need.
Exactly. If we could have we have 3 more hands raised, and then we actually do have 2 more things on the agenda. So for the folks that are able to chat now, please nix or just be quick with redundant statements to add, and then anything new, please expand on those. So we're gonna allow the 202 411 are the last 3 digits of your telephone number. If you hear us, you are able to chat.
Hi, this is Dennis James. Am I recognized?
Yeah, Dennis, it's you.
Okay, yeah, I was a lot of noise on the line, and I, had to push the buttons. Anyway, thank you. Hi, Mr. Jones. I met with you last December at DPR offices to discuss some things to do with Walter Pierce Park with the Remembrance Pavilion, and I don't know where that stands. But today, I just wanted to talk to you about. And Hughes Hargrove Park. The Calorama Citizens Association, of which I'm president, took an action to become the community partner there, and I applied, but in the way that the website said to apply at the time. Mm-hmm. In the meeting that you and I had, along with the chief of staff and another staffer, I was told that there was new paperwork and it was much more streamlined, but I still don't have that paperwork. So I'll write an email to you after this meeting and seeking the appropriate paperwork for us to proceed to become the community partner for Hughes Park and Hughes Hargrove Park. And just, I'm not sure, is Brent Cisco still likely to be working on this project?
I believe so. He has since gotten promoted since you and I met. But let me ask this question. Can you give me your name one more time?
Dennis, spelled with 1 N. Last name James, James.
And Mr. Jones, I can ensure to connect you if you aren't connected. I'm sure you have an email chain with all of us on it.
Okay, Dennis,
Sure.
I'm sending you an email.
Okay, that's great. But I wanted to just touch on the members of the ANC on the Public Services and Environment Committee at the time had met with myself and Calorama Citizens, little committee on parks, which is comprised of 2 folks who may be listening, Cynthia Poles and Mary Belcher. And there were some other residents. Not chairman, beg your pardon, but Commissioner Guthrie was present and another commissioner or 2 who have since departed the ANC. But anyway, we were talking about the physical things that there were unevenness to the paving bricks, which is probably a pretty small fix. New slats on the park benches of the proper type of wood. They're just 2x4s now, pressure treated 2x4s. And then selecting some of the appropriate types of plantings as opposed to ones that are inappropriate. And then there's discussion about a water fountain or not. So I think those are the biggest issues there that we wanted to be talking about. And there were some preliminary drawings put together, a drawing, but I thought, we sort of went past that when we tried to work up this list with Brent Cisco. So anyway, I just want to, bring you up to date on what had happened previously.
Hey, Dennis, I sent you an email. You should have it in your Verizon account. Let's reconnect and we'll go.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have it. And thank you very much. I appreciate you coming out tonight.
No problem. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so looks like we have Diana. Can you hear us?
Yes, although it's actually not Diana. That's just the phone, the site I'm on, or it's I'm actually Ricardo, and I think when you've seen Diana, right, it's the reverse. But this is Ricardo Noguera. I live on Euclid Street. Hold on one second. I'm getting a little background noise. Okay. Yeah, I just jumped on, so hopefully I'm not repeating too much. But I just want to make a couple points. Unity Park, as I think if probably a few other people have mentioned, it really is festering, out of control. So I just decided, spend some time for a couple hours just seeing what I could observe there over the course of the weekend. And because usually I only see it when I have to pass through, and like most people in the neighborhood, people don't actually walk through it anymore. People walk around it, and that's the first thing you notice if you spend any time there. It's as if it's like a rock in a stream. Everyone just goes around it. It's not a park that's at this point usable by anyone in the community because it's been basically taken over by drug dealers and vagrants. The other thing you notice is how open and blatant the drug dealing is. And now, and really in the last couple of weeks, you had new sets of folks that have moved into dealing drugs. So younger people, people selling not just to the addicts that will congregate on the park, but really selling to lots and lots of the folks that are driving up, pulling up, and buying drugs. And, this sort of stuff only gets worse over time and only spreads. And just as we've seen since Unity Park really started to go downhill a few months back, it's now spreading up and down Euclid. You see it with the litter and the trash that these individuals are dropping every day. Just today, 2 individuals I recognize from the park on my private property in the back alley were having sex. This is, it's only going in one direction. And I think what you're going to sense is an increasing, especially over time, frustration from residents and business owners. Because we're not even seeing the small things happen, right? Like I see everyone there plugging their phones, hanging out all day long. I would imagine it would be relatively simple to disable all the plug-in spots on that park. That would be a deterrent. I think it should also be relatively simple for there to be a public camera so that people aren't openly drug dealing on that spot, or at least they know that there's some risk that they can be arrested or identified. But as of yet, there's been nothing. So I think you're gonna find that people are gonna get more and more frustrated, and particularly when this starts impacting businesses and it starts impacting residents. The amount of
Mr. Rojas,
say on.
Excuse me 1 second. Hey, I think let me just say this really quick because I have a limited amount of time. I think that what you may have missed is we're committed to working on the issue. There's a community meeting that's coming up that I will try to attend, and in the meantime, I'm looking to work with the commission to come on the park and actually look at some of the issues and try to address them to the best of my ability. So I want to make sure that there's 2 more questions, and not to try to cut folks off, but I have to do bedtime, so I want to make sure that I answer these two questions, and then if you don't mind, come back, set another date maybe to come back to the commission and talk further. But to your point, I think you've spot on a lot of these issues, and we're committed to working with you all.
That's fine. I'll yield back my time here, but just make one last very quick point. I think if there was any other location, whether private property or public property, where there was an open air public health risk on a day-to-day basis, it would be shut down. I couldn't do this on my property. I couldn't invite my closest friends to drink in the open air and on my front stoops every day in close proximity without masks. That would be shut down. I would be fined. I think that might be one way to think about how we can move more aggressively here. This is a park that is probably better off shutting it down and making it available for no one in the short term till we get it sorted, than allowing this to continue to fester and become a worse problem over time.
Thank you so much. I think there were two more questions, right, Commissioner Bowles?
I only saw one, and let me pull. It was from Mr. Wexler.
Oh, okay. Mr. Wexler.
Hi, Tommy. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. And thank you to the ANC for the ANC's leadership here and stepping up and putting Unity Park back on the agenda, where for years, I think many of us in the community believe it's been a matter that deserves much more attention and now demands our attention. I'm happy, by the way, maybe not tonight, to provide background on the Lion Hotel agreement, which I helped to craft with the Recook Neighborhood Association maybe 9 years ago or so now. And I hope that a number of you remember, but one of our other affiliates across the street at the Admiral Heights project agreed earlier this year to help fund and endow a Friends of Unity Park organization. And that's because we care so much about this park. After connecting over the past several weeks with a number of the other co-founders, the Adams Morgan Commercial Development Coalition also plans to get more formally involved in Unity Park, and hopefully we can together help reimagine it. I want to do a little bit of a history lesson here because I think it's important. Back in 2016, 17,
Short history lesson,
18, yeah, and then in early 18, in anticipation of the opening of the Lion Hotel, I made to the bid several of the suggestions that the ANC chair has recently brought up to community members. We had a walkthrough in early 2018, and the group made specific recommendations on how to promote a safer environment in Unity Park. I followed up on these suggestions, like putting cameras in the park, which the previous caller just mentioned, on a number of occasions with the bid and the bid board's leadership. And it really disappoints me that over the past 5 years, the bid board has never prioritized the impact of the illegal activity at Unity Park on the business environment on and around Columbia Road. And it's now, of course, a public health problem, as I've written to the bid and to the ANC several times since the onset of the pandemic. Charlie McCormick smartly calls this a public health and drug dealing crisis. I'll generously add to it and call it a lack of leadership to address a problem that has been ongoing for many years. And now this problem inhibits opportunities for nearby businesses to maximize their outdoor revenues because of the discomfort with the activity in the park. And this is a problem that for all of us to solve collectively, we've got to be engaged, we've got to be sensitive, and we need to take action. This problem is impacting businesses in ways that I'm happy to discuss, but some businesses just won't consider. Some of them are tenants of ours. They're not going to consider outdoor dining because of the activity there.
Hey, Matt.
Thankfully, just let me finish, please. Thankfully, my friend Eric Bruner Yang has opened Brothers and Sisters out in front of the Lion Hotel, in front of the church, and we all hope it works. Many others, sadly, just won't even try. And Charlie mentioned a variety of those in an email that he sent earlier this evening. What's happening today in Unity Park holds back the potential of Columbia Road. And I'm looking forward to doing something and not just talking about it, with the community fully engaged to solve this problem. It was an open air drug market in 2016. It was an open air drug market in 2017. It was an open air drug market in 2018 and in 2019 and now in 2020.
Hey, Mr.
And it's
West.
not, it just
Excuse me one
please,
second.
please, just let me finish.
Well, I have to be, with all due respect, I'm like really into my bedtime with my child.
Tommy, I get it. I get it. I have the same, I got the same things myself.
Yeah.
And I'm not, Tommy, I'm not blaming you. I'm not blaming you.
Hey, thank you so much, Tommy. Thank you for everything. We will reach out on all of these side conversations to get updates on it. Please end up going.
No.
I'm about to.
I just want to say this, we are, I'm committed to working with the commission on this issue in the bid. And I think Kristen, we can definitely follow up with the conversation as well in the council member's office and others. But again, I just want to say, with all this being said, thank you to everyone. Thank you for an opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you for your commitment and your service to your communities. And thank you for enjoying our wonderful DC park system. Our park system was last year rated the #1 park system in the nation. And it's because of residents like you who continue each and every day to make it a great place to live, to learn, and to grow in the District of Columbia. So continue to come to our parks because it's where fun happens. Thank you so much. You all have a great evening.
Thank you, Tommy.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt. Can you hear us?
I'm back, baby.
All right, we're back. All right, so yeah, let's talk about solutions. What do you have for us?
Good. All right, so I was on a roll there. And I just want to add that what we have seen now for years is just not acceptable. And there are solutions that have already been identified. And there's funding that's available. Let's do it. And I don't want to wait until next week. I don't want to wait until next month. I certainly don't want to wait until next year. Because all of these things that we've been talking about now for nearly 5 years, we can do together quickly. And I know we're willing to fund it. We just need some help in making sure that this is something that the community really wants. And I think if we start off with that list that Amir put together on the email from 2 weeks ago, and it was an email from 3 years ago, that's the same basic list, we can probably make these things happen very quickly. And I'd really love to know, if there's a group or an entity, whether it's the ANC or somebody else that is going to take responsibility and take charge of this, because frankly, the bid has not. And I don't want to wait any longer.
All right, thank you so much, Matt. So if we have any other further questions about the parks or Unity Park, please continue to email us. We're going to be continuing to have these ongoing discussions. In regards to like immediate solutions, I honestly don't think there are, agreeable community discussions or community solutions. We can't just get rid of the electric in the park. I know folks may say that we can. I am not in favor of that. I do not support that. It just cuts into my liberal progressive values. And then the same thing for the benches. I'm sorry, but I'm not in favor of getting rid of the benches. So in order of looking at things that we all can agree on, I think we need to start looking at those types of things, because the short-term solutions are not ones that we have unanimous support on. I know that there are things that we can get unanimous support on, and a way to make it where everyone can use Unity Park. The Reed Cook Neighborhood Association, I feel like I'm beating a dead drum here, but uses Unity Park and it is just fine. Yes, there's marijuana use. Yes, there's alcohol use, but there's parks. Panorama Park, for instance, also has the scent of marijuana, also has people drinking wine and hard liquor. So whenever we talk about who we're going to fine or who we're going to kick out, we need to look at this holistically. If there is crack cocaine being used, please call MPD. But for something that you would get a fine for, maybe we should think about being more holistic and actually using the space where it isn't some like social stigma to walk around the park, but to walk through it. And I know we're all neighbors here, we're businesses here, we're going to be staying in this neighborhood. So why fight something? Why not work to build together? And I know that everyone that was on this wants this. I know we all want to work together to do these and create these solutions, but limiting people's access, I don't believe is helpful. I think, there's other community-based solutions, and I believe that, we can help find them. To that, I will, do the commissioners have any other questions, or would they like to make a statement or anything? Because we do have 2 other items on the agenda.
The only point I'd like to make is that I think it's quite clear that we need to continue to have discussions of Unity Park, not so much necessarily at committee meetings as, in like working groups to move forward with this and to figure out whatever solutions we can address. It sounds to me like a big part of this is that MPD needs to enforce the serious drug problem that is going on there. And they certainly were aware of it when the dealing used to happen at the Burger King across the street. So I think that that's something that we really need to address with MPD. And I would just like to, keep it on uppermost in our minds as we work forward and do a little offline work.
Thank you. Thank you for that. John?
Well, I find myself worrying about people that in the park without masks. Now, I suppose that if everybody wore a mask, it would impair MPD from finding the people who were committing crimes. But on the other hand, if the DC government insisted on using masks, maybe that would discourage some of the people just hanging out in the park. They might find someplace else to go where they don't have to wear a mask.
All right, so let's move on to the next agenda item. Judy, do we still have you here? All right, so
I'm still here. Sorry, figuring out this.
Oh no, I apologize. I'm sure you were hearing a lot about parks in Adams Morgan, and it just got you excited to talk about your organization, Platform of Hope, and how you want to help provide folks in the neighborhood with hotspots and with laptops, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you all. I'm also I'm not in this direct ANC, but I am a Ward 1 resident, and I walk by that park frequently. So actually am listening to the conversation with interest. The Platform of Hope we are a nonprofit initiative. We were founded about 3 years ago. And we were actually founded by anchor institutions in the area whose names I'm sure will be very familiar: Jubilee Housing, Mary Center, Sitar Art Center, and Jubilee Jumpstart. So we're really a collaboration of these anchor institutions who are all providing services in their specific field, whether that be housing, youth education, health services, early childhood. And all of these organizations, while doing amazing work on their own, we're realizing, it wasn't enough. There's still so much need in our community, and there's significant displacement in our community. So how can we actually work with families of color who are economically disenfranchised or disadvantaged, I should say, to really work with them to tackle all of their goals very holistically, because so often when you're receiving support, it's very siloed, but also really uplift the power of social capital, connecting families with each other, with their community, and really valuing the lived experience that they have from having to live through a lot of inequitable systems, as we're all, I'm sure, learning about or already know about. So we work with cohorts of families who are all based in the area. I'm not going to read you all those statistics. If you go to our website, platformofhopedc.org, you can learn more about our program. But as I'm sure everyone is aware, COVID-19 has really hit families quite hard, and families of color, low-income families, have been disproportionately impacted health-wise, and in terms of the economics. In fact, there was just an article by NBC News that cites an NCRC research that Latinx families across the country, I think it's 3 out of 4 Latinx families are deeply, deeply hurt economically because of multiple layers of discrimination. First, in the industries that have been shut down, then in not being able to receive any sort of public stimulus or unemployment insurance, and then fear of the public charge, which has kept them from getting any sort of COVID-19 relief. So we are committed to working with these families and supporting them. And one of the main things that we're all aware of, I'm sure, is the digital divide for low-income families, that most families, when this pandemic started, had maybe 1 laptop, if that, in their household. Not enough to, as we've all now seen, need 1 device for every single child who's required to do distance learning, and then for the families themselves to remain connected to necessary resources. So what we're asking for from the ANC would be to fund computers and hotspots extenders if need be for a new cohort of families that we would onboard, where the application is on our website right now. It's in English and Spanish. And those families would join the program in January 2021, and every single family would be given a device, because we want to make sure that families are not just connected with us, but connected to the other resources that we are going to refer them to. And while I know some folks think that, oh, well, DCPS, not all families send their children to public schools, and the schools have run out of devices. Families are on waiting lists. So even though there has been an effort, and we appreciate that, there are still gaps. So we're really committing to making sure that families are connected, because it really should be the human right that we all have during a pandemic, that we can access information that we understand in our language and at our fingertips. So we would really appreciate the support from the ANC, because currently all our funding has gone towards supporting the current cohort of families. We didn't used to give out devices. This was an emergency response. And now we're trying to prepare for bringing on 20 new families. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. So yeah, I think, so ordinarily, just for folks who are still aligned with us, ANCs consider grants from community partners, and we have upped our grants, I would say just business mojo in general, since last year, thanks to previous commissioners, Michaela Wright, as well as Bridget Pooley. And so now we were also given or not prerogative, but an opportunity from the council by their expansion of how we can give grants and who we would give grants to. I would say typically a grant that would be giving hotspots and internet, which is internet, and a computer would not fall under the typical grant guidelines. However, due to COVID and due to this being an immediate and a response need from the COVID crisis, that this would fall under the legislative authority given to ANCs and the Office of ANC to grant such a request. So I did get this checked by the Office of ANC Director, Simon Gottlieb. He originally sent feedback saying that this does look like it would be normally in their scope, and we responded that it is not, and that this is something different and is in response to COVID. And we will be before the full ANC commission. I believe Judy and I will be working on a cover letter that will further reinstate the fact that this is a COVID response effort, a COVID response grant, much like the face masks and the hand sanitizer and the gift cards and the micro grants that we have given, that this is also a need that COVID has required governments and other groups such as ourselves to help fill. So that's the basis of this grant. John, Ted, do you gentlemen have any questions for Ms. Etsy? Yeah, John.
Thank you, Japer. Ms. Etsy, thank you for doing this work, and I'm pleased to see that I don't know your organization, but I know your partners. And if Jubilee Housing is behind you, then I want to be supportive. I'm worried about how we can make a clear connection between giving away the computers and setting up the hotspots and the COVID-19 crisis. My 2 cents worth, the clearest connection would be, here's a family with a child who isn't able to go to school face to face. The school is requiring learning at home because of the COVID-19 crisis. And that's cut and dried. If there's a family with a child in that situation, let's give that family a computer and the hotspot to help. So my question to you, Ms. Etsy, would it be possible to restrict the ANC grant money to families who have a child who's being forced to study at home because of COVID-19?
So the barrier with that is that it's not just the children who require the devices. So what we're finding, as I'm sure many of you are finding at home, is it's really hard to have your children do distance learning. It's really hard to do with that if they're in the same space. It's really hard if they're sharing internet, if they're sharing devices. But then a lot of these parents themselves are also enrolled in learning. They might be enrolled in BRIA so they can enhance their English skills or do some job readiness training. They might be trying to connect to really needed mental health support. So while I super appreciate the point you're trying to make, for us, by making it that specific, it means that then families who maybe the kids have been provided with DCPS devices, but that means that while their child is doing distance learning, that parent is not able to access the internet or be on a device. So just imagine if that was us, like if I had to be away from a computer from, 8:30 to 3:30 every day, like I don't even know how I would operate. So we're really trying to emphasize that we're trying to give one as like you get one so that it doesn't become a problem later on. Because another part of our program is that we are referring our families to other partner organizations. So even if one family, maybe they're not enrolled in BRIA right now, but after 3 months, they then choose to enroll. I had one family member who I had to lend her a computer of one of our staff members because she was in BRIA's nursing training program, and the computer she had wasn't advanced enough to do like Microsoft Teams. So she wasn't going to be able to do the externship. So it's all of these kind of like small situations that, we are just trying to make sure that that's not a question. Going in, you just know you're going to have the computer that you need so that you have opportunities available to you.
I'm struggling to find something that will pass muster with our reviewers in the DC government. The people who are taking programs at BRIA, are they being required to study remotely?
Yes.
Well, then that's a COVID-19 condition.
Yes.
Good. And the families who have a child on the waiting list, we should give that family a waiting list to get a DCPS computer.
Right.
They should qualify. It's just anybody who's short a computer because they can't get one to do their COVID-19 related work at home.
Right.
And I bet you could find $4,000 worth of families in that situation.
Well, I think that we would, based on what you're asking and based on what it takes to be in a cohort, and Judy, please add in here, I feel like it's like one-to-one overlap. Like what is the criteria in regards to being a part of the cohort? Because wouldn't they have to be enrolled in some sort of public education system or charter or?
Right now, to be in the cohort, you have to be based in the Ward 1 community, and you have to be a family, which is defined by one adult and one child aged 24 or under. Mm-hmm. And other than that, we get a lot of referrals from our partner organizations, in which case, yes, they're already enrolled with that partner, but not a lot of partners are able to provide families with devices. And that's the beauty of us being a small, really person-centric initiative, is we want to take that step in a way that larger partners cannot. But also, because we really value the social capital of our participants, we also accept referrals from family members. So 40% of last year's cohort were actually referred by the first cohort families. So those families may not be connected yet to a resource, and that's part of the process of referring them, is to get them into a new resource. But it's so hard to do that when you're having to do it from your phone, if you can imagine. So I appreciate the point I think you're trying to make. My only pushback, and it's not even pushback, is just to explain that the reason we're keeping it very broad is because we don't want to then say, oh, we aren't allowed to give you a computer because we said we'd only give it to kids, or we'll only give it to adults in training programs. The whole point is that we're really letting families self-identify what it is that they need. But what every family needs right now is connection, is remote connection. That should be a human right because of the COVID-19 crisis. And so what we're trying to do is preemptively make sure that that's not going to be a barrier for families to access the resources they require and the services that they should get.
And John,
Is it okay if I call you Judy?
Please.
Okay, thank you. This is John.
and John,
We're not saying that you may only admit to the cohort people who meet a COVID-19 related need. I'm saying only use the ANC money for families where there's a COVID-19 tie. You know what you do with other money is none of our concern. And we can broaden the COVID-19 connections. A child or an adult whose learning facility requires work remotely and doesn't provide a computer immediately, or a family where the wage earner has suffered a job loss because of COVID-19. That's a COVID-19 related condition too, isn't it?
Right. Well, technically now we could, if we're using that logic, being involved in the platform of hope is case one, being involved in a learning activity or resource where you are required to have a computer.
There you go.
So there you go. By being in our program, you need to have a computer because our program is really based on connection. And so it's one-on-one monthly coaching, it's group sessions, all of that is being done on Zoom. So really, we're giving the computer so families can do that. And to be clear, because this was some pushback we received before, we never gave out computers before because everything was in person. So now that we've said we can't meet in person, it's not safe, like if we feel it's irresponsible to say, if you want to be in our program and you want to receive our resources, you have to connect digitally, but we're not going to support you in doing that. So since this is a new cohort, they'll be totally new to the program. And all of them, I mean, I can tell you from the applications, and I can tell you anecdotally, as I'm sure you're aware, I mean, there are very few families who are under the requirements I described who have not been hit in some way by COVID-19. I mean, right now in our current cohort, 85% of our families have lost some or all of their income, and 70% have lost some or all of their job. So I would be very surprised if the new cohort would not be facing similar conditions.
Okay, and Japer, I'm satisfied. I think we can make the case that it's in the public interest for people to be participating in the Platform of Hope program. And it's normally an in-person face-to-face program, but because of the COVID-19 crisis, we have to find an alternative path. And it endangers public health for people to meet face-to-face. So we're on solid ground, I think, giving the grant. With the statement that this is for people who would otherwise be in a face-to-face program except for the COVID-19 emergency.
yeah, and
Let me ask Ted if you have a similar perspective.
And I believe that we would be the only or the first ANC to provide, like we were with the masks and the gift cards, we're now the first ANC to look into providing support for hotspots and computers. So we are definitely pushing it, but we keep getting a response that it's a broad mandate. And, I have high hopes that, he will Gottlieb will let us dispense this money as we see fit.
Could Ted, for him to weigh in on this issue?
Yeah, my only
Yes,
concern, and let me be clear about it, is that there have been some questions coming from the Office of the ANC about grants that we give that have a relatively limited population base that are being served by that grant. Now, to the extent that the COVID relief exception comes up, that's great. And, that makes perfect sense to me. I just want to make sure that when we vote on this as the full ANC, that we have a sign off from Gottlieb that we're not going to wind up basically being penalized by having $4,000 taken out of our next allotment. That's my only real concern, because I want to make sure that the money that we give out gets replenished so that we can give out more. And I really want to get this nailed down before the meetings so that we don't have the sort of problems that we had with Lighthouse. And I just wanted to make sure, Platform of Hope, we gave you money last year, but not this year. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Last year, you invested in translation devices.
Right.
And some childcare support, which we really appreciated. And unfortunately cannot use either of those right now because we're doing everything remotely.
Exactly.
So, but we hope to use again.
Exactly. No, I just want to make sure that we were within our individual guidelines of not, it didn't seem like it was a year ago, but if you say so, I believe you.
Time flies when you have these
does.
meetings.
And it certainly does during COVID. But I would really urge, I don't need to vote because you two are a quorum. So you guys can go ahead and make a motion and, and approve it. But I would like to make sure that when we come to the full ANC, that we have a sign off from Gottlieb that says, this is all good and we'll give you your money for the next one. That's my
absolutely. And since I've been taking on, actually it was the equipment from last year that made me undergo a new process of asking Gottlieb, like, hey, are you going to ding this or not? And yeah, so we've been sending these. So yeah, I will make sure that before our meeting that we will have everything signed off. And then John and Ted and anyone else, if you have any additional questions or want to provide any additional statement, I do believe that Judy and I are still going to provide a cover letter just to highlight the key points, because I'm looking at this grant now and it is a lot of information, and I honestly don't necessarily think Mr. Gottlieb read all of it, which, that is totally in his will to do. So if there's any other questions, I'll make a motion to move this to the full ANC, and with those addendums that John mentioned, and of course with the approval from the Office of ANC that Commissioner Guthrie mentioned.
I second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor say aye, aye.
Aye.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so
Okay.
much, and would love to work with you in any future projects. Really appreciate your support and all of the work that you all do.
Yes, thank you so much, Judy. We will touch base offline shortly.
Great. My contact info is in the chat.
Wonderful. So the next thing that we have on the agenda, I actually need to add to the agenda, John, so I'm looking for a second here. I was reached out to on behalf of Potter's House, and they are interested in completing the Great Streets Retail Grant. And they potentially will need support from the ANC because Michaela, the commissioner that's district that is no longer a commissioner. So I wanted to tee this up just in case that they may need this. I know that we're all big supporters of Potter's House, and we would want to enable them to get a $50,000 grant from the city to help purchase equipment, technology enhancements, as well as storefront renovations. And it looks like we have former Commissioner Brian Weaver on the line as well. He is a board member of Potter's House, and he is here to chat with us. Mr. Weaver, can you hear us?
You should be able to talk, Mr. Weaver. We cannot hear you.
I asked him to unmute, so.
But here.
Oh, here we go. Awesome.
Okay, sorry, I was hitting the unmute. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. so we have the grant proposal that's coming forward, and it's actually going to be a large portion of what we're going to try to do there is for the facade and the windows that face out onto Columbia. For those of you that don't know about Potter's House, we are the one of the older nonprofits in the community and the longest serving sit-down restaurant in Adams, Morgan. Sort of we're at an interesting kind of place and time because our entire concept was built around the idea of radical hospitality, getting people together and share at a table together at a time now where we can't do that. So we're trying to find new ways to sort of reach out in the community. And the thing that we really kind of pushed during COVID is our Pay It Forward program. So we're essentially putting out about 600 meals to people that can't afford food during this time. So the Great Grants program, or the Great Streets program that we're seeking support for, is going to be, we're looking to do some modifications to the building out front, having an awning that actually would not leak on customers that are able to sit out on the patio during the summer, replacing some of the plant boxes out in the front, and doing something to the front windows there. We don't know if we actually need the full ANC support. What we really were kind of hoping is that we would have our SMD member, but obviously we can't do that during this time. But we would be willing, and I don't know if this is allowed, but we'd be willing to just take the support from the Public Services Committee, just any sort of letter that we sort of saying that talking about our commitment here to the community and that we've been here for 60 years, and that the bookstore and the arts program out of Potter's House has been a longstanding tradition here in the community.
Yeah. Yeah, no. John, do you have questions?
I have a motion.
Yeah.
Before your motion, I have
Yes.
a question for Brian, which is, what's the time frame that they need whatever they need from the ANC on?
We need to submit a proposal on Monday.
So you're going to need to submit it before we have the next ANC meeting anyway.
Yeah.
Which I think that, and I think that there was a miscommunication amongst the board members. I don't think that anyone thought of getting ANC support originally. And then by the time it was like, well, it's fine, just get your SMD person. And then I had to let everyone know that the person who represents our SMD it's a vacant seat at the moment.
Well, what I would suggest might be more appealing to the application. I'm certainly willing to have us put it on the agenda for the full ANC to sort of ratify it after the fact. Mm-hmm. But I think that it would make most sense coming from the chair, the letter of support. And if you provide Amir with whatever information you want to have put in the letter, he could, get one and get it pumped out so that you'd have it by Monday.
Okay, I can reach out. I think that our executive director reached out to Amir earlier today. I wanted to reach out to Japer because of the committee and being the neighboring SMD. Right.
And it all makes sense. The crazy thing is that none of us as individual, as individual commissioners is supposed to have any power outside of actions that are taken at the full committee hearing. Right. But there are some agencies that are perfectly willing to take whoever the SMD is. But it seems to me that with a vacancy, what would make most sense is for Amir to write it as chair, stating that there is a vacancy for the SMD right now, and that we plan to have a motion to support it at our next ANC meeting that will be happening on such and such a date. And then whatever you want in as far as what a wonderful organization it is fine.
Okay. That seems reasonable.
Yeah, Ted, should we try to make a movement out of this committee?
Or no, especially because of the lack of 10-day notice. What I'd suggest is that we just put it on the agenda. And as a matter of fact, I think we should put it on the consent agenda.
Okay,
Because I can't imagine that anyone would have objections to it. Mm-hmm. Put it on the consent agenda for the October meeting, and just let Amir know what it is that needs to go in the letter that needs to be received by Brian by Monday so that they can put it all together and submit it.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. And I forgot what I was going to say. Okay, cool. No, yeah. If Brian, you said that you have tried to reach out to Amir and he just hasn't responded yet.
It was Lee, the executive director of Potter's House, who reached out to Amir, and then I reached out to you.
Okay. Yeah, no. Okay. So, yeah, we'll ensure that the chair is aware of this and that we can get this to you by the end by the end of the Sunday.
Okay.
And then if you would be able to come back to the ANC whenever the grant gets approved and be like, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is the cool event that we're doing because of it, because it's not COVID anymore and the world is a better place.
Absolutely. Kind of a sad time to have our 60th anniversary.
Well, better than not having one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
I think it's gonna be a very different landscape when this all breaks of what survives.
And Brian, could you shoot whatever language you were going to suggest in the letter of support to Amir so that he has that sort of
Sure, absolutely.
language that needs to be about Potter's House itself?
Okay, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah,
All right.
well, I think we're good here. Gentlemen, do we have any other questions?
Just to thank Commissioner Weaver for returning to the ANC.
I kept my mouth shut during the park for the most part.
Quite impressive.
Good for you. Thanks, everyone. We'll be in touch. Thank you so much, everyone.